Sma, what is that Korean green tea that you have?
I probably should have done that.
Hi, we're Sma and Rainy. Last time we talked about white teas, and this time we'll be talking about green teas. And in the meantime, we'll be drinking some Japanese green teas and Chinese green teas simultaneously.
Oh yay! Question. Are green teas called green teas because the leaves are so green?
Not really, not necessarily, but green teas are the second least oxidized out of all the 6 major tea types. They're minimally oxidized, and the processing of green tea actually does maintain the green color of the tea leaves, so kind of. But you know, with white teas, the processing is super straightforward. You've plucked the tea leaves, you wither it, you dry it, it's done. But with green teas and most other tea types, there's also a step of intentionally stopping the oxidation process. This process is called killing the green or fixing.
And in Chinese, it's actually known as sha qing. So qing has 2 literal meanings. The first one is green, and the second one is rawness. So in my personal opinion, I think it should be better translated as killing the rawness, because if you think about it, the purpose of this crucial step is to preserve the greenness of the leaves, as Sama mentioned earlier, and the freshness of the tea. And so we want to keep the green rather than killing the green. Yeah. And in China, there are 4 major ways of performing sha qing, and they are roasting, drying under the sunshine, steaming, and pan frying.
And the different ways of applying high heat, as Rainy mentioned, really alter the flavor profile of the tea. Usually the green teas are harvested in early spring, so like sometime between March and April.
Yeah, so for example, in China, after you harvest the leaves, you typically wither them, and then you roast or pan fry them, which is the sha qing process we talked about earlier. After that, you roll the tea leaves into different shapes or appearance, depends on the cultivar. And lastly, you just dry the leaves, and it's pretty simple and straightforward too.
And then in Japan, the tea leaves are plucked, but they're not withered. They directly go into the steaming process. So what steaming allows is for the heat to be better distributed among the tea leaves. So not withering and steaming means that the chlorophyll is better preserved, which then means that the Japanese green teas are a lot greener than Chinese green teas.
Yeah, so here comes a little fun fact about that. Steaming used to be practiced in China during the Tang Dynasty, and then later it got carried over to Japan. However, it gradually faded away in China.
Another fun fact is that matcha is shaded Japanese green tea, and what shaded means is that a few weeks before harvesting, the tea plants are literally shaded to avoid direct sun exposure. A brief explanation of what avoiding direct sun exposure does is that it decreases the likelihood of the tea to be bitter and astringent in its taste. Anyhow, so once the tea leaves are plucked from the shaded tea leaves, they're steamed and not withered. They directly go, after they've been completely steamed, they go into a stone mill, are ground up, and then you have matcha. Voila. So going back to your question, Rainy, the green color is what distinguishes green tea the most. And green tea actually preserves most of the natural compounds because of the way that it's processed. How was tea first discovered?
So you guys remember that badass that we talked about in the previous video, whose name is Shen Nong? Yeah, so it's him again. He discovered green tea in Sichuan province in China.
Green tea is found everywhere in the world. It's produced everywhere in the world, like seriously everywhere. But some major green tea producing regions are Kagoshima, Shizuoka, and Uji in Japan, and Posong and Jeju in Korea, South Korea.
And followed by Hangzhou, Guizhou, and Huangshan in China.
You can even find green tea in Hawaii, Nepal,
Kenya,
everywhere.
Vietnam, Thailand.
Yeah,
everywhere.
everywhere.
Seriously.
Like we just mentioned, you know, there's so many green teas that can be found in so many different regions, but we'll only touch on Japanese green teas and Chinese green teas. So with Japanese green teas, they are categorized by shaded and unshaded, which we mentioned during the processing explanation, and also by leaves and stem. And the most popular Japanese green teas are sencha, matcha, gyokuro, kukicha, kabusencha, and so on.
And then, so now let's go to China. Chinese green teas are usually categorized by the shaqing processing that we mentioned earlier. And because different ways of doing so produces different flavors. So some of the very well-known Chinese green teas are Biluochun, Anji Baicha, Dragon Well, which is Xi Hu Longjing, and then we have Taiping Hokui, which in English is Peace Monkey Leader?
Peaceful monkey leader.
Peaceful Monkey Leader.
When brewing green teas, the most popular ways, besides your standard teapot or tea bag, is by using a whisk to whisk up matcha, using a kyusu, for most Japanese green teas and Korean green teas, or the ganfu style for Chinese and Taiwanese green teas.
Green teas are sensitive to temperature and brewing time because the leaves are very tender and delicate. They usually have more content of catechin, which is a chemical compound that contributes to the bitterness taste in tea. So if we brew the tea for too long, the bitterness and astringencies are very likely to come out from the green tea.
If you're brewing Japanese green teas, you typically want to brew them anywhere between 160 degrees Fahrenheit to 190 degrees Fahrenheit.
Versus if you brew a Chinese green tea, you typically want to brew them at 80 to 85 Celsius.
And you don't want to you don't want to steep the green tea more than 3 times. This is because green teas have a pretty high content of tannins, and too much of tannins in your body is not that good for you.
Not good for your body.
The liquor of brewed green tea is green. I'm just kidding. It can be anywhere from like lightly colored water to green.
Very green. Here's a comparison of different green tea liquor. Matcha, Japanese kukicha, and Chinese biluochun. Now, due to a wide variety of green teas, there is also a wide range of tasting notes. If it's steamed, then the green teas are more likely to be umami, vegetative, and seaweed-like sometimes.
And if they're pan-fried or roasted, they typically have some notes of chestnut, they're mildly floral, green bean, also vegetal, but way less in their umami than steamed green teas. The benefits of green tea are that they are very high in antioxidants.
And matcha is a great substitution for caffeine. So if you are a coffee drinker and trying to convert, I would say matcha is a good starting point. And also, powder teas are better absorbed by your body than loose leaf teas. So the world of green tea is vast, But we hope this video can help you to start your green tea journey. Join us next time as we'll be covering a well appreciated, however unfortunately kind of dying tea group, which is yellow tea. Commit and like, and happy steeping! Happy steeping! Cheers!